Welcome again, Maxim here. Today we are gonna talk about types of primary and secondary weapons. Melee weapons will be described in the next video, because putting all of them here will be too much. At the beginning, an important term should be introduced, one of the basic parameters of each fire weapon, the hitscan. Hitscan weapon immediately moves the fired ammunition to the indicated point. Non-hitscan weapons are based on firing bullets that have to cross a certain space to the target and which have a certain speed of movement. The most basic test to check if any weapon is hitscan or not is shooting the bullet as far as possible and check immediately after the shot whether there is a bullet hole or not. Warframe sometimes can be deceptive here, because shooting can have sometimes additional animations that can confuse players, but that kind of test is good enough. Okay, let's move on to the fire weapon classification. We can divide them into different types, not only because of used ammunition, but also how they behave after pulling the trigger, or how they are used to neutralize enemies. We can list many types here because Warframe has a lot to offer on that field. Let's start with automatic rifles and shotguns. As an example of a rifle, I'm gonna use one of the start weapons, Button. After pulling the trigger, it automatically fires bullets from the magazine until it's empty or the trigger is released. Default left mouse button. An example of a shotgun can be Bore. But also in secondary weapons we can find, for example, Furies, or its doubled version, a Furies. Some of secondary weapons can be single version, doubled, or both. Very similar are auto-spool weapons. For presentation Gorgon here. The longer you hold the trigger, the faster you shoot. When you release the trigger, the process is over and you start again with the basic speed. In secondaries with same fire mode we can find Twin Comac. It has a similar fire type to the class called once Hand Cannon, which has changed in Warframe over the years. It used to be the name of all types of Bronco and few others, but their class was changed to the secondary shotgun in the descriptions. Few other pistols are described as hand cannons, but I think it's not a weapon of class in Warframe anymore. Moving on, Latron is an example of semi-auto weapon, which shoots one bullet per one trigger pull. Its counterpart from shotguns is Tron. From secondaries we can also use Lato, or double version, Aklato. Next one are burst rifles. They shoot 2 or more bullets every trigger pull. Here we have Bursten, and shooting with it may seem a little bit difficult because of the recoil, but it is a matter of practice to overcome that. From the secondaries we have Kraken, for instance. Let's move to the more complicated weapons. During our journey in Warframe we can find the Batacor. It's an auto-burst weapon. Default fire mode is automatic shooting, but in series of 2, until the trigger is pulled off or the magazine is empty. Alt fire is a massive piercing shot, which can be used every 3 killed enemies, by pressing middle mouse button. At this point I should mention hybrid weapons. Example of that can be primary rifle Hind. It shoots in 2 different styles, semi and burst. Just like Ballistica, which is burst by default, but when we want to shoot one bullet, we need to charge it. Hybrid weapons have more than one mode of firing, which we can change by pressing middle mouse button or holding left one. There's quite a lot of them, even among shotguns. One of them is Corinth. Next are held weapons. They fire a continuously harming beam. An example here is Ignis, a flamethrower. We shoot a blast of fire until we pull off the trigger or the magazine is empty, and we damage enemies in some limited range. One of the secondary weapons firing that way is Gamma Core. Charged weapons like Opticore may require charging before shooting. For some of them charging is optional, but not fully charged shot will deal reduced damage. If we want charged shotgun, we can use Draggun. We can also find that kind of weapons in secondaries, like Staticar. Now we have launchers. Here we can also find a weapon that needs to be charged, for instance Ogris. That weapon class mostly shoot with 1 or more missiles or some other bombs. From the secondary ones we can use Stag, which on alt fire mode needs to be charged. Another type is called active weapons. Their bullet fall on the ground and lay there for some time. We can detonate them manually with alt fire. That's how Penta grenade launcher works. If we want that kind of secondary weapon, we can use talons, tactical throwing claws. Let's move to the more unusual weapons. In their arsenal, Tenno have also spears. However, they are primarily not melee weapons. This type is called spear gun, and we can shoot with them or throw them. Depending on which spear it is, it will act differently if thrown. For instance, Ferox will pull enemies and electrify them. After some time it will come back automatically, or we can pick it up. It's time for bigger guns, arm cannons. For now we have two of them. Shadow, if you like rifles with one fire mode, or Bubonico, with auto by default and burst in alt fire. Talking about shotguns, there's a type called Duplex. They fire one bullet if we hold left mouse button, and second after we release it. Fast mouse click will make it shoot both bullets at the same time. Almost all weapons in that class are primary shotguns. The only exception is secondary Zilog. There's also something for those who expect more accurate approach. Semi-sniper rifle Vectis ideally suits the hands of someone who prefers to solve problems from the distance. Not all snipers are hitscan ones. I'm talking about Lanka. It shoots with charged electric bullets. There's also something for assassins who like less noisy weapons. Let's start with crossbows. We have auto ones like Attica, or hybrid ones with more possibilities like Nagataka. Semi by default, and auto till magazine is empty on alt fire. And finally bows, which are weapons where we need to charge each shot by stretching the string. As an example we have here Paris, one of the first weapons in game. I did not mention modular weapons called kit guns, because this topic is so extensive that it requires a separate video. That's all about types of primary and secondary weapons due to the firing mode. But I only showed the usual variants of weapons. There are also special variants which are different in terms of appearance or damage. The most numerous group are prime weapons. They have been created with Orokin technology and become prototypes for the regular weapons, which are now after the end of Orokin era, an ineffective attempt of Prime's reproduction. The next group are syndicate weapons. Those variants often have some special effects. Some of them depend on the syndicate that is responsible for its creation. Variant names also depend on the syndicate, and they are called Vicor, Telos, Synoid, Sakura, Rakta and Sancti. Moving on, we have Kuva weapons, which are used by special Grineer units, and we can get them by killing those units. They have additional damage types, which can be increased by combining two pieces of the same weapon. Another weapon group is Prisma, which are distributed by Barocketeer, appearing cyclically on various relays. Vandal. Blue variants of weapons with Lotus mark are styled on Corpus and Tenno weapons. We can get them on few special missions or on events. In similar way, we can acquire Grineer styled weapons called Raid. Another group are called MK1. Players encounter them at the start. They have no mastery rank requirements and introduce beginners to the game pretty well. You don't need to build them in Foundry. You can buy each of them for 50,000 credits on the market. In the end, there's one group of weapons and two isolated cases. Dex weapons are a special variant available once a year. There's also one Mara weapon called Detron and one Seti weapon called Lacera. Finally, I'd like to mention that this may happen. If the weapon shots in one mode, let's say auto, it doesn't mean that other variant of that weapon will be the same weapon class. If we check Tiburon or Quartak, we will see that the first one is burst and second is auto weapon. Yet both Tiburon Prime and Kuva Quartak are hybrid. Don't be afraid to check if the weapon you are using has an alternative mode. Sometimes it can positively surprise you. And that's all in this video. If you have any questions, ask me in the comments. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye. Thank you for watching. Leave your reaction under this video, if you liked it or not. I'd like to read your comments as well. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell. I also invite you to visit my Twitch channel, Maxim_land. Streams from Monday till Sunday at 5 PM. See you next time, bye.